Just like you and I both know from the people that we see that most guys are out there doing the right thing, working hard, taking care of their families, taking care of their community, doing a good job at work, and they leave themselves out.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State podcast. Super excited that you're joining us week by week, learning how to elevate your own life and the life of other people. And on today's podcast, I have a really special guest, somebody who's actually an expert in men's health. So whether you're a man or a woman who have men in your life, you're going to want to listen to this because men tend to not listen to their bodies very well and not listen to the health problems before they get too late. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about the major warning signs that you should be listening to if you're a man in terms of how you could protect yourself from getting a major disease, a major symptom like erectile dysfunction, a disease like cardiovascular disease or cancer. How do you prevent that? How do you find a physician who will understand all the problems that men go through? What about decreasing testosterone levels? What about low libido? What about your hair falling out? What are the new technologies that men should know about? All this and more in today's podcast. And I bring to you the eminent urologist who is really a pioneer in the space and who's also the author of this book, The 21st Century Man, Dr. Judson Brandeis. A little bit more on Dr. Brandeis. He's an award-winning urologist and sexual medicine expert, clinical researcher, physician educator, and a caring clinician and surgeon. Also a pretty funny guy, as you'll discover. He's a graduate of Brown University and Vanderbilt University School of Medicine with a urological surgery residency at UCLA. That's the same place I also did my residency as well. He has a postdoc fellowship at Harvard, and today he specializes in the emerging field of sexual health and medicine. Over the course of his 25-year career as a board-certified urologist, he has performed thousands of surgeries and pioneered surgical robotics. In February of 2019, he opened Brandeis MD, a national leader in technology and sexual medicine innovations for men. Brandeis MD engages in ongoing clinical research to improve well-being and provide tools for men to live their best lives. Dr. Brandeis is dedicated to helping his patients and men everywhere feel great, look good, and have better physical intimacy. He brings his wealth of expertise and care in his first book, The 21st Century Man, advice from 50 top doctors and men's health experts to help you feel great, look good, and have better sex. Who would want that? Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this podcast with Dr. Judson Brandeis. Dr. Judson Brandeis, welcome to the Thrive State podcast, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here.
It is such an honor to be here. I had just gotten your book for all you men and women looking to improve men's health. And for all you ladies with men, this is a great book to have. You could see it is a beast of a book. And it covers everything from relationships to health to epigenetics to biohacking. So I highly recommend everyone get The 21st Century Man. So Dr. Brandeis, we do something on the show called the 5 to Thrive. It's just 5 quick questions worth 1,000 points each. And if you win this segment of the show, the next time we meet, you get a healthy dinner on me.
Awesome. All right.
Are you ready to play the 5 to
I'm
Thrive?
ready to go.
All right. Question number 1 is, what was your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, my favorite childhood memory was going to the beach. I grew up on Long Island, and we used to go to Point Lookout Beach and just running up and down the beach and playing in the sand. Absolutely.
The beach. Great. 1,000 points there. Question number 2 is, what did you want to be as a child?
Oh, I always wanted to be a doctor. There's nothing else that I ever wanted to be.
Excellent. How did you choose your field of specialty?
So I did research at American Red Cross with Harold T. Merriman, the guy that figured out how to freeze blood, and we were trying to freeze kidneys. And so I became really interested in kidney transplantation. I did some research at Harvard Medical School in the lab where they did the first living-related kidney transplant, and then I matched in urology at UCLA where we do kidney transplants. And so I thought I wanted to be a kidney transplant surgeon, and then I sort of fell in love with general urology.
Oh, amazing. All right. That's another 1,000 points. Question number 3. Oh, that was question number 3. Question number 4 is, what's the biggest challenge you overcame in your life?
Oh gosh, the biggest challenge was getting fired by my ex-partners.
We can maybe dive into that.
That's chapter 101 in the book, if you're curious.
And last question for you, and you're winning the game so far, is how would you like to be remembered?
In so many different ways, and in a lot of different ways, the 21st century man is kind of my legacy. And there's a chapter 100 in the book is legacy. What are you going to do for others? The chapter 99 is gratitude. So be thankful for all the amazing things that you've gotten in your life to get to that point. I mean, I feel a tremendous sense of gratitude for the amazing education that I had. I went to Brown University and I did research at Harvard, and I went to Vanderbilt for medical school and UCLA for training. And I had so many professors and colleagues and just absolutely astonishingly amazing people that helped me and shaped me and influenced me, and really just leaving that legacy. And a lot of that legacy is written down in the book. It's over 900 pages. So it's everything that I've learned about medicine and how to approach medicine. And then 60 amazing colleagues who are physicians and mental health experts who wrote chapters to really have a tremendous impact on men's health.
Yeah, what a beautiful work, and what a tribute to the type of work that you've done from all the people that I've seen collaborate. A good friend of mine, Joel Kahn, I know that is on there talking about diet and different things. Such an excellent resource here. And you know what? You got 5,000 points. You win the 5 to Thrive. So I think we get to meet soon. Right. So I could buy you dinner.
We're going to Spago's in Beverly Hills.
All right. Sounds good.
Or Nobu and on PCH up in Malibu. I haven't been to that one yet.
Well, we'll definitely go.
I'm an expensive date.
It's a good thing I'm a physician then, huh? Now, before we hopped on, you were a few minutes late to the podcast because you were doing a circumcision. And so let me ask you, I mean, I had my whole program, decided ahead of time, but you bring up circumcision. Are people still doing it these days? And for what reasons and indications are you finding circumcisions still happening for?
Yeah, some people do it for hygiene.
Yeah.
They get really bad phimosis, so it's difficult to withdraw the foreskin or pull it back. And some people just do it for cosmesis. And in Northern California, I live not too far from Apple, Google, Facebook, Lawrence Livermore Labs, Oracle. And there are a ton of Indian programmers that come over to work with those companies, and they don't get circumcised when they're young. And a lot of them really have a lot of problems with foreskin. So I do a ton of circumcisions on that population. And I used to do big operations. I was a pioneer in robotic prostatectomies, cystectomies. I think I was the first person in California to do a robotic cystectomy. And now I don't do that kind of stuff anymore. So I do little procedures that I can do in the office, but it's still fun. It's still a little bit of skill, a little bit of artistry.
And what would you say the ideal age is for someone to get circumcised?
Well, the best age is like a couple of days. You don't remember it.
Right.
It comes out cosmetically. It comes out perfectly. Your tissues, talk about anti-aging. Your stem cells are fresh. Everything's healing. But then after that, really any age.
I see. All right. Well, I mean, the book is The 21st Century Man. And like I said, I was really impressed when I flipped through it because you really cover a 360-degree view on not just health, but living. So you talk about purpose, you talk about sexual health, you talk about mindset in there, and then all the stuff in medicine too. So it's very, very complete. I recommend it to everybody. But let me just ask you this. What do you find is the single biggest health challenge facing American men these days?
The single biggest challenge really is learning how to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
The thing is, guys get a bad name, right? All these bad guys in the news, doing bad sort of stuff. But, just like you and I both know from the people that we see, that most guys are out there doing the right thing, working hard, taking care of their families, taking care of their community, doing a good job at work, and they leave themselves out. Yeah. And then they show up in my doorstep when they're in their 50s or 60s or even 40s sometimes, and they're out of gas. Their testosterone's low, they're fat, they've lost muscle, they can't get an erection, their testosterone's crap, and you have to resurrect them.
Yeah.
And that's what the 21st century man, that's the genesis of it, is because, I didn't want to have to take care of guys when they were 55 or 60 and they're just falling apart. Like, this is the cookbook for men, or like Randy Hetrick, the founder of TRX, called it the Dude Bible, right? This is prevention and early intervention of every health problem that affects men, because I don't take insurance. So I spend a lot of time with my patients, and I understand, and I go deep into all of their health problems. And so every chapter really in the book comes from one of my patients' problems. Like, I got a 42-year-old guy with erectile dysfunction, and he otherwise seems pretty healthy, but you know what? He's got sleep apnea. And guess what you need to do at night? You need to get erections. So guess what? When we fixed his sleep apnea, Mike Murphy wrote the chapter on sleep. I sent him over to Mike. We fixed his sleep apnea. Guess what? His erectile function got better, right? It's just things like that, or, low testosterone for a variety of reasons. So it's really the pinnacle of all the work that I've done with all of my patients over the years that informed me about writing all the chapters.
That's beautiful. And I hear in there, and people don't normally use the word toxic masculinity when it comes to taking care of yourself, but that's what men do. Is they're maybe too macho to take care of themselves. My beautiful fiance talks a lot about self-care, and I know definitely in the feminine communities it's regarded as something that's so important. And I don't know if that term is macho enough for men to also have self-care, but I definitely think it's very important for men to understand their stress levels, what they're going through, and actually take the time to care for themselves and to ask for help.
Well, I mean, take, for example, I talk in the book about nighttime erections. Right? Nighttime erections are a function of circulation, right? So when you're 20, you wake up every morning and the flagpole's at full mast, right? And then sometime in your 30s or 40s, or if you're lucky in your 50s, you lose nighttime erections. Okay, why does that happen? That happens because the circulatory system isn't working like it should. And that should be like a little light bulb should go off, and you should say, I better do something about my circulation, because 10 years after you lose nighttime erections, you'll one night be with your partner and things won't work. And then 10 years after you develop erectile dysfunction, guess what? You develop heart disease.
Right.
And 25% of the time, the first symptom of heart disease is death. Like, it's hard to come back from death.
Yeah.
So if, you had a 20-year warning period before you died, you could have done something during that period of time. And if you're a guy and you're, exhibiting toxic masculinity and you think that you're indestructible, when we're in our 20s and 30s, we kind of aren't indestructible, right? I mean, I remember going out till 2:00 in the morning partying. And then as a resident, you'd show up the next morning, you'd do rounds at 5:00 in the morning, you'd be in surgery by 7:30, you'd work a full day, you'd go home, you'd work out, you'd have a couple of beers and go to sleep, right? You could just do that. But I'm 54 now. I couldn't do that anymore. But the thing is, you got to understand that the stuff you do in your 20s and 30s and 40s is going to impact the way that you can live your life in your 50s and 60s and 70s.
I love that message because it really hits the youth today. And I love what you said about ED, because it is really a signpost for the number one thing that's killing people all around the world, which is cardiovascular disease,
Absolutely.
Heart attacks and strokes. And ED is a circulatory problem, and other circulatory problems, like you said, are life-threatening, which is the heart attack and stroke, which leads to my next question is, what are ways to kind of reduce those risk of people getting premature deaths from cardiovascular disease?
Well, I mean, most of the stuff we all know.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I have my 99% folks, and then I have my 1% folks. And I have something to offer both those patient populations. But my 99% of folks know that don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs, don't eat too much, exercise, get good sleep, stretch, maybe do some meditation, and be nice to other people. Like, if you do those 9 things, and they're all free, they don't cost anything. If you do those 9 things, you're going to be really healthy, right? But for some reason, we don't do them. And the reason we don't do them to whatever extent is, life is tough. There's stress, there's issues, there's financial issues, there's relationship issues. And so we need to ease the pain in some way. So we drink or we smoke or we do drugs or, we don't exercise because we're tired or we eat too much, whatever. And so really the key is doing the things that we already know that we need to do. That's half the battle.
And right. So what are you offering that 99%? I recognize those very same type of patients. People pretty much know what they need to do. They're just not doing it. And so what are you offering either in your clinics or your messaging that, gets people to do what they probably know that they should be doing?
One of my favorite machines is my body composition scan. That guys respond to numbers. Right. And these are all generalizations, but women, they look in the mirror and they say, I need something here. I need something there. Guys will look in the mirror and say, wow, I look great. Wow. There's never been a better looking guy than me ever. Right. But then I put him on my body composition scanner and I'm like, dude, you got to lose 50 pounds. You're walking around with a 50-pound backpack every day. And that's why your knees hurt. That's why your feet hurt. That's why you're exhausted at the end of the day. That's why you're turning testosterone into estrogen because there's a lot of aromatase in the fat. And so, your testosterone levels are low and your estrogen levels high. So you got some man boobs, your muscles are weak and your leg muscles are weak. It's all there in numbers. I had a patient who came in just yesterday and I'm kind of rough with patients sometimes. I give them what they need. And he came in with his wife and I told him a bunch of stuff that was just obvious to me that he just didn't want to hear. And he came back the other day and he said, you know what, after I left your office and I went to the car with my wife, he said, I just cried. And I cried for 15, 20 minutes because I knew that everything that you told me was true, but I just didn't want to hear it. And I didn't like the way that you told me about it, but that was kind of the only way that I could have heard it. And, he came back, he's lost 15 pounds. He's put on 3 pounds of muscle. I keep weight loss and I keep exercise very, very simple for people, but it's highly, highly effective what I do.
Beautiful. And so do you think that's why so few men reach their actual true potential, whether it be in business and health and their relationships, only because they overcomplicate things?
I think a lot of people in the nutrition and exercise community kind of overcomplicate things. I mean, there are certainly people that have metabolic issues that are very complicated, that require a lot of expertise. So not everyone is simple. But, in general, I believe that in the calories in, calories out, exercise is 500 calories an hour. A pound of fat is 3,500 calories. You have to track calories and you have to know what your basal metabolic rate is. It's been astonishing how effective that's been with my patients. And then I give them a handout that shows them that they put up on the refrigerator that shows, these are proteins. I believe in a high protein, low carb diet, high micronutrients, high fiber, and healthy fats. I tell them all to go to Costco, get the unsalted nuts mixed. Those are your healthy fats because there's not enough avocados in the world to go around.
Right. So let me ask you this. I know a lot of people who are tuning in here are tuning in for very men specific type of health problems. ED seems to be more prevalent now at an earlier age for a lot of people. Can you point to a reason why that might be the case? This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that thrive state is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
Yeah, well, it's a combination. First of all, our testosterones are getting lower, right? And it's because we're sedentary. Right. So, hunters had super high testosterone because they had to go out and kill stuff to eat. Farmers have lower testosterone. Not that farming is not a hard job, but, you don't have to go out and kill something. And desk jockeys, can call Uber Eats and have a burrito delivered in 20 minutes. Right. And so we're sedentary and our bodies are smart. Our body's like, well, I don't need to make much testosterone because you're not going out and killing anything. And so your body doesn't make that much testosterone. And if you're overweight, and 40% of men are fat or overweight or obese, right, then your testosterone gets aromatized into estrogen. Now your testosterone's even lower, right? So now your libido's lower. And then, you have cardiovascular disease. You eat too much or you smoke or you drink too much. And so plaque starts building up in your blood vessels and the efficiency of bringing blood flow to the penis decreases. And, I tell people blood flow starts in the heart, and the 2 last places that get blood, and this as an interventional radiologist, are the toes and the penis.
Right.
But when the blood vessels to the toe start to get clogged a little bit, your feet get cold, right? Your feet don't stop working. But when the blood flow to the penis decreases, your penis actually stops working, right? Because you have to get a threshold blood pressure in the penis in order to generate enough pressure to block the backflow of venous blood, right? So arteries pump. Arteries have muscular walls. The blood pressure in your arteries are 120/80. The blood pressure in veins are like 7 or 8. They're easy to occlude. And so those blood vessels, those veins that return blood from the penis, sit on the periphery of the corpora, the erectile body. And as that fills up with blood, it blocks the backflow. So think about it this way. If you're on the roof of a burning building and the next building is 6 feet over, if you jump 6 feet, it's a good day. If you jump 5 feet, it's a long way down.
Right.
So if you're a penis, right, if you achieve 100 millimeters of mercury of blood pressure, it's a good night. If you get to only 95, it's a frustrating night because your penis fills up with blood, but as soon as the blood gets in there, it drains back into your body. You're not rigid enough for penetration, and your spouse is really not happy.
I hear what you're saying in terms of, things to address ED, a lot of it being lifestyle, some of it being hormone optimization. What are some of the newer things that are coming out with ED? I mean, we know there are the phosphodiesterase inhibitors, but now we're hearing things like shockwave therapy, red light therapy, regenerative medicine, and some peptides. Can you speak to all of them and maybe whether or not they have any merits?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I wrote 2 sections in the book. One's called sexual healing, and the other is sexual medicine. And
did you write it or did you sing it?
Yeah, both.
All right.
And so, I had a lot of fun writing the first 2 chapters of sexual healing. It's about a guy. The first chapter is called Sex on the Beach. It's about kind of guy meets girl. It's about like how everything goes right. And then the second chapter is that same guy, now he's 50. He's overweight. He's got 3 kids. He's got a, busy job where he flies from place to place. He's got sick in-laws. He's got sick parents. He's all stressed out. And he goes on a trip with his wife for his 50th birthday and he develops erectile dysfunction. Right. So it's very relatable. That's what happens to all of us. We get 30 years ago, we're carefree. We got no kids. We're running around. We're residents. We're in scrubs, we're on top of the earth. And then 30 years later, we got a mortgage and a practice and kids and tuitions. And, it's stress and we can't work out like we used to, et cetera, et cetera. And so, okay, the way that I break it down is the signal and the pipes. Okay, the signal comes from a molecule called nitric oxide. And so when I was at UCLA, Lou Ignarro won the Nobel Prize for figuring out that nitric oxide is the second messenger that opens up blood vessels. Okay. And I actually have a supplement called Affirm from Affirm Science that is a nitric oxide booster. And we get nitric oxide from two different places. We get it from citrulline, which comes from watermelon. And citrulline is a non-essential amino acid that turns into arginine, and arginine is the nitric oxide donor. And then the other thing we get it is from nitrates, which are in beets. That's why everyone eats beets. And every time you look at a magazine article for erectile dysfunction, eat beets, eat watermelon. This is where beets and watermelon come from. So nitrates get turned into nitrite. There's an enzyme in your saliva. That's why mouthwash isn't good, because it kills those bacteria that convert nitrate into nitrite, right? And they've done studies on blood pressure, actually, on people that use mouthwash, right? That show that the blood pressure in people that use mouthwash is actually higher. And people are like, well, why could that be? Well, the reason is it kills the bacteria that turn nitrate into nitrite. And then the stomach, nitrites turn into nitric oxide. Okay. And nitric oxide is released by nerves and it opens up blood vessels. So I use Affirm to help my patients with blood pressure issues and get them off blood pressure medications. But also, a lot of guys are taking Viagra, doing great, and all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. And how come? They think, well, it's a tolerance issue. Well, it's not a tolerance issue. It's because as you get older, you make less nitric oxide. So if you boost nitric oxide with a nitric oxide booster like Affirm, and you take a PDE5 inhibitor like Viagra and Cialis, and what those do, right? So nitric oxide makes this stuff called cyclic GMP, CGMP, right? You don't need to know that other than to know that that's the linchpin of the whole system. And the more CGMP you have, the more your blood vessels open up. Now there's an enzyme, and that enzyme is only in the penis, and that enzyme is called PDE5. And all of the things like Viagra and Levitra and Cialis are PDE5 inhibitors. So they block that PDE5 enzyme, which is only in the penis, and keeps the CGMP around so that the blood vessels only in the penis open up. Okay. So that's the signal. Now, the other part of the pipes, right? As you get older, you clog the pipes because 1, you're old, 2, you've been eating an American diet, 3, you've been smoking or not exercising, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a technique using acoustic waves or pressure waves or GAINSWave or low intensity shockwave therapy. You can call it a million different things, but basically it's an intense wave of energy. And that wave of energy doesn't cause tissue damage, but it tricks your body into thinking that there's tissue damage. And so when your body thinks, oh gosh, I've been injured, it generates an injury response. And part of that injury response is to activate stem cells. And stem cells are cells that can grow into other cells. And it also causes the release of growth factors like vascular endothelial growth factor, platelet-derived growth factors. So a bunch of growth factors. So it plants seeds and then it puts fertilizer on it. Okay. And so, shockwave therapy can't turn a 75-year-old diabetic into a 20-year-old stud. But it can take a guy who's 55 that needs Viagra all of a sudden and turn the clock back 5 or 10 years, and you don't need Viagra anymore. Or a 65-year-old where Viagra is not working so well anymore. Now, all of a sudden, Viagra works great. Or a 75-year-old where nothing seems to work. Now, they're getting decent results from a PDE5 inhibitor like Viagra or Cialis. Okay, but then another thing that we use is what we call platelet-rich plasma. So PRP is basically we isolate platelets from blood. So we spin blood down. When we spin blood down, red blood cells have iron in it. It's because iron's in hemoglobin. And so that red blood cell goes to the bottom. Plasma, which is the water that your blood cells float in, goes to the top. And the platelets and the white blood cells are in the middle. And so we take out the platelets and white blood cells, and then we actually re-inject it into the penis, which isn't nearly as painful as it sounds. But PRP is used for everything. It's used in orthopedics, it's used in hair growth, it's used in facial aesthetics, and we inject it back into the penis. And that in combination with shockwave therapy accelerates the growth of the stem cells in the little baby blood vessels and dramatically improves the flow of blood into the penis.
That's pretty amazing. And I know some people out there using a peptide called lanotide or PT141. Can you explain a little bit of how that works? Because it seems to be
so these crazy
system.
these crazy Australians were working on something for sunless tanning because they all get basal cell carcinoma because we burnt out the ozone layer over Australia. And so the Australians were getting tanned, but they were also getting really horny and getting spontaneous erections. And so they're like, hey, mate, looks like we're onto something. And so PT141, it's also called bremelanotide, and it activates a melanocortin number 4 receptor in the brain. And no one really knows why that particular pathway also goes down into the sacrum, but it does. And for folks who either conventional medications like Viagra and Cialis don't work, or it also boosts libido, and you also get spontaneous erections, right? So with Viagra and Levitra, you have to stimulate. Whereas with PT141, it's like, being 17, 18 in high school again, all of a sudden, things start happening. But there are some side effects from it. About a third of folks get pretty nauseous. And the other thing is that the onset of action is pretty variable. So anywhere from like 1 to 3 hours. It's much more difficult to time than, say, Viagra or Cialis.
That was a great little summary on sexual health there. And I want people to know at this point, many men don't like to go and see the doctor themselves. What's the best way to find somebody who understands the challenges that, a man goes through in terms of health and in terms of aging? And how do you go about finding a physician that can meet those needs?
That's a really, really great question. And, the thing is, you and I both know that the American medical system is under tremendous stress.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I personally believe that going to the doctor is a partnership between the doctor and the patient. Gone are the days where doctors live on the top of the mountain and, tell people what to do, right? You're a partner with your doctor. You have access to the same information. So like when I was doing research at Harvard, the Harvard Medical School Library is the biggest medical library in the world that had 1 million volumes, and people around the world would fly in just to go to the library at Harvard to find articles. Now you have that same information in your cell phone that they had at the Harvard Medical School. And I encourage my patients, Google search stuff, bring stuff into me. I'm just one person. I can't have access to all the information, right? So actually go out on the internet and find stuff. And I have a really good YouTube channel. Go to Brandeis MD. I do a lot of physician teaching, and I put a lot of that stuff up on my website. I go to the Sexual Medicine Society meetings. I read the Journal of Sexual Medicine. I put that kind of stuff up in my Instagram and Facebook. But the other thing I did in the book, and also it's on the 21stcenturyman.com website as just like a downloadable video. And I really this is part of my mission, is to help patients work with their physicians, right? Please don't go into your doctor's office and talk about football or talk about your pet cat or talk about your kids, okay? Cerner, an electronic medical record company, did a study. I looked at 100 million charts. Okay, that's a lot of charts. And what they found is you're in the doctor's office for 16 minutes and 14 seconds. That's it. That's all the time you have with your doctor, like it or not. And guess what? It's going to get worse because 20% of the medical physician population and nurses are going to leave medicine in the next year or two because they're burnt out and they've been mistreated during COVID. And all those signs of our heroes work here, they're all torn up and gone, and the doctors are toast. Okay. I'd ask any of my colleagues, ask anyone that you know in the medical field, doctors are burnt out. Okay. So you're not even going to get your 16 minutes. So if you help your doctor, they're going to be happy. And the way to help your doctor is Write down your medical history. What medical issues do you have? What surgeries have you had? Do you smoke? Do you drink? Okay, then make a list of medications, okay, with the doses. And maybe some of the medications you tried and they didn't work. And then write down all the imaging studies you've ever had, CAT scans, MRIs, ultrasounds, okay? And then make us a medical history of like why you're here. Like my erectile dysfunction started 5 years ago. I started using Viagra 3 years ago. I don't get nighttime erections, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For any medical problem you want to address with the physician, and then type up a list of questions, right? 9 times out of 10, people walk out of a doctor's office and say, well, they didn't answer my questions. Make it easy. Okay, we're teammates in your care. So make a list of questions. Hand it to us at the beginning of the visit. When somebody does that, I get a big smile on my face. I take out my dictating microphone. In 3 or 4 minutes, I've gone through all the pertinent positives. And then I look up and I say, great, let's start. And the other thing is, I send ebooks and I send videos and all that stuff to my patients before they even see me the first time, because I want them to be educated as to why they're here. And then let's have a second or third or fourth or fifth level conversation, right? Instead of having me teach you the basics, I can teach you basics on a video. But I want you to get the most, like my attorney, he's $750 an hour, right? So every minute I'm in his office is $11. That's like lunch for me. That's a good lunch for me, right? You got to treat your doctor just like a $750 attorney, because there's a lot of people that are in the waiting room waiting for that 16 minutes and 14 seconds with the doctor. And so just make the most of it.
Well, that's really good to know that your good lunch is $11, because I am taking you out to a meal.
I'm a cheap date.
Well, hey, there's so much I want to get into, but we're running out of time. And so where do people find you? Where's your YouTube channel at, where they can find out more about men's health?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is just Brandeis MD, Brandeis MD. And my website is brandeismd.com. We do all sorts of amazing stuff in my office. So, I'm one of the top sexual medicine physicians in the country. I do amazing clinical research projects. I have an amazing project where we discovered a technology that improves the intensity and duration of ejaculation.
Ooh.
So especially for guys who are diabetics or older folks, when the pelvic floor muscles get weak, we have a technology that can actually help you with that. I'm looking at that same technology for improving erectile dysfunction. I also have a technology for improving the length and girth and function of a man's penis that hopefully will be presenting in October. That's also totally safe, so guys don't have to get surgery or fillers. And then the book, The 21st Century Man. So it's all written out in lowercase letters, the21stcenturyman.com. And we have the hardcover book, which I'd recommend. There's just nothing like a good, solid book. And it's the kind of book that grows with you. So what I tell people is read the introduction, read the first chapter, go through the table of contents. It's a long book. It's over 900 pages, 101 chapters, every aspect of men's health. Physical health, emotional health, mental health, relationship health, sexual health. There's an amazing section on health insurance, because health insurance is super difficult to understand, but I have a great health insurance executive. He and I wrote this amazing chapter on health insurance that help people understand, because like if you go to the doctor, but you don't know what your health insurance is. And I have guys like they're PhDs from Lawrence Livermore Lab. They're responsible for like planning nuclear explosions. And I look at them and I say, do you have an HMO or a PPO? And they're like, I don't know. I think I have to call my wife. Right. So, you got to educate yourself on what you're paying for health insurance. So go to the 21stcenturyman.com, order the book. Yeah, the Men's Health's coming up. Men's Health Month is June. Father's Day is coming up. It's a great time any day is a great day to start eating better, to start exercising, to stop smoking, to stop drinking, to take better care of yourself. But, Father's Day is a good day to start, or Men's Health Month.
That is great. I mean, I love your legacy, your book, The 21st Century Man. I recommend every man and woman pick up this book because I know there's probably going to be men in your life that you want to give this book out to. Dr. Judson Brandeis, I definitely want to find out more information about all this new research and technology coming out. So I hope you'll join us on the show again in the future. But until next time, thank you for being on the show and thank you for being on the Thrive State podcast.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if this podcast is bringing a lot of value to you, if you find that your life is just improving with this podcast, that your life is getting to the next level, please consider supporting it. And here's a few ways you can do so. You can do so by liking this video and commenting on this video, and also sharing this video with your friends and family. Another thing you can do is go to ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review there. It will really, really help this show grow. And this will give me more time so that I could actually give more content to you, just like you got in this episode. And if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance, you can pick it up now. It became a #1 new release in longevity. Go to thrivestatebook.com. And if you enjoy the book, please consider leaving us a review as well. And the last thing you can do, if you're liking everything here and you want to work more closely with me as well as my team to get you into the Thrive State, go to kienvu.com/accelerator and consider joining the home course, the Thrive State Accelerator. It's really the course that I use. It's the concepts that I use personally when I work with CEOs, celebrities, and my high-profile clients to get them to the Thrive State. Again, the Thrive State Accelerator at kienvu.com/accelerator. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want you to save 25% by using the coupon code podcast25. I hope we continue to give value to you. And remember always, you are your best medicine.